You just hit $10,000. That exact second, your mind started working against you to drag you back to zero. And if you don't know how to trick that impulse right now, you are going to lose it all. In this video, I'm going to reveal the psychological mechanism that causes most people to sabotage their own financial success right after their first major milestone, and how you can apply a simple mental hack to protect your wealth before it's too late. Behavioral science is clear. Your brain wasn't designed to accumulate wealth, it was designed for survival. That's why psychologically, keeping $10,000 is much harder than earning it. I've analyzed the cognitive patterns of those who consistently build wealth versus those who fall into the vicious cycle of gains and losses, and I've prepared the ultimate protocol for you to retrain your mind starting today. Many people think that reaching their first $10,000 is a sign that they've finally learned how to play the game, that they've made all the right choices, and that from now on the road will always be one of victory. But the truth is, there is a hidden trap in this milestone. The exact moment you reach $10,000 is when you are at your most vulnerable. It is the point where your behavior, which was previously focused on effort and discipline, begins to be tested by a pressure you cannot see. Many make the mistake of thinking financial success is just a math problem, when, in reality, it is a battle of self-control and patience. Upon seeing that amount in your account, your human mind, with all its complexity and emotions, begins to react in a way that can be dangerous. You feel euphoria, relief, or even a hidden fear that the money might disappear. And it is this emotional state that opens the door to choices driven by impulse. Most people forget that our mind has a natural desire to seek the easy way out and to want quick recognition. That is why, right after the first big win, the urge to protect the money or to spend it speaks louder than your long-term plan. The problem isn't the amount itself, but what that money represents to you. It stops being just a number and starts affecting how you see yourself. When you aren't prepared to handle this change, the almost automatic tendency is to look for a way to get back to where you were before, often ruining what you've worked for without even realizing it's self-sabotage. That's why to keep and grow those $10,000, you don't need more financial tips. You need a simple plan to protect your mind from these impulses, allowing you to see this milestone not as a reward to consume, but as the foundation for something much bigger that you are just starting to build. The invisible enemy, internal conflict. Now, you might be wondering why this urge to mess everything up happens so quietly, as if your own head were fighting against what is best for you. This is what I call the invisible enemy, a deep internal conflict that happens when what we feel clashes with what we know is right. You see, our mind is always processing everything we live through based on habits we already have. When you are fighting to get your first $10,000, you are fully alert, focused on the goal, the hard work, and the discipline. However, as soon as you hit the goal, the focus shifts from building to possessing. It is in this shift that the invisible enemy takes control. Instead of keeping the discipline that brought you this far, your mind starts to see this new amount of money as a source of worry or temptation, rather than a tool for growth. It starts creating internal noise, a subtle pull to seek quick comfort, because human beings often struggle to balance the security of having money with the discipline needed to take care of it the right way. It's not that your mind is broken, it just doesn't have a manual on how to handle this new environment of abundance. Without that manual, your thoughts go back to the easiest path, which is why so many people feel a strange, almost irresistible urge to make a silly purchase or abandon the habits that brought them success. This internal struggle is the real challenge. It's not about the money, but about the firmness of your decisions when you no longer need to rush to survive, but have the responsibility to take care of what you have earned. Understanding that this struggle is a normal, though dangerous reaction is the first step to silencing this invisible enemy and keeping your focus exactly where it needs to be. Now that we've talked about the invisible enemy, we need to address something even more personal, the trap of identity. When you reach that $10,000 mark, you don't just see a bigger balance on your screen, you begin to see a new version of yourself. And this is where many people get lost. They start to believe that being a person with $10,000 means they must act, dress, or spend like someone who is already wealthy. This is a dangerous identity shift. You see, true financial growth isn't about changing who you are to match your bank account. It's about making sure your bank account reflects the discipline of who you are becoming. If you don't have a clear purpose for these $10,000, if you don't know if they are for an emergency fund, for investing in your skills, or for building a future home, the money becomes a source of confusion. Without a defined purpose, you aren't building a future, you're just waiting for the next excuse to spend. Many people get stuck at this level because they are so focused on having the money that they forget to define why they need it. I want you to ask yourself, does this money serve your life goals, or are you serving the money? If you treat these $10,000 as a trophy, you will soon lose them. But if you treat them as a tool, as a resource that serves a specific, calm, and well-thought-out plan, they become the foundation of your independence. Now let's address the most practical part of this journey. What is the actual purpose of your $10,000? Many people reach this milestone and simply stop because they lack a why. They treat these $10,000 like a finish line, but in reality it is just a starting point. You must ask yourself, are these $10,000 your safety net for emergencies, or are they the seed for your future financial independence? If you don't decide, your brain will treat them as extra money, and that is where the danger of impulsive spending begins. A clear purpose acts as a filter for your decisions. When a get-rich-quick opportunity or an impulsive desire comes along, you can ask yourself, does this serve the plan I have for my $10,000? If it doesn't, the answer is a simple no. Having a purpose is what turns money from a source of stress into a tool for freedom. It forces you to move from just saving, which can feel like a sacrifice, to investing in your life, which feels like progress. When you know exactly why you are protecting that money, you stop feeling like you are depriving yourself of life, and you start feeling like a steward of your own future. So, define your purpose now. Is it for your family's safety? For your professional growth? For your peace of mind? Once you have a why, the how becomes much easier to manage. There is one final critical trap you must prepare for, and it is arguably the most expensive one of all: the illusion of golden opportunities. The moment you hit that $10,000 mark, something shifts. Not just in your bank account, but in how the world perceives your financial potential. You suddenly become a magnet for miracle deals. These are the schemes that promise to double or triple your money with little effort, preying on the fact that your brain is now calibrated for growth. I have seen countless hardworking, intelligent, and disciplined people lose everything in these traps, not because they were inherently greedy, but because they were desperate to accelerate the process. To protect yourself, you must first understand the anatomy of a scam. These schemes are almost always modern, digitized versions of the same age-old predators, simply wearing a new mask to look legitimate. They thrive on the manipulation of three specific psychological pillars: manufactured urgency, artificial exclusivity, and the promise of a shortcut. Whenever someone tells you that you have a unique chance that expires in 24 hours to make guaranteed returns, you are not looking at an opportunity, you are looking at a calculated threat. True wealth, the kind that survives market cycles and lasts for generations, is never built through shortcuts. It is built through slow, deliberate, and quite frankly, boring steps. If a deal sounds too good to be true, it is not an opportunity. It is a direct assault on the foundation you have built. The faster someone promises you can get rich, the faster you should run in the opposite direction. Beyond protecting your money, you must fundamentally protect your privacy. One of the most effective and yet most underrated ways to stay safe is to cultivate quiet success. When you broadcast to your social circle, your neighbors, or your online followers that you have reached the $10,000 milestone, you are unknowingly ringing a bell that invites unsolicited, often dishonest advice into your life. You open the door to investors, advisors, and distant acquaintances who suddenly know exactly how to spend your capital. Success is, and should always be, quiet. By keeping your financial progress to yourself, you remove the heavy social pressure to show off or prove your worth to others. It is that very pressure, the psychological need to validate your success by displaying it, that leads people to make the most disastrous financial decisions of their lives. When you stop proving your value to the world, you start protecting your future instead. You stop acting to please the gallery and start acting to build a fortress. Think about it this way. Your wealth is a signal. A loud signal attracts predators. A quiet signal allows you to move, adapt, and grow in peace. When you are quiet about your progress, you possess a massive strategic advantage: the element of surprise. No one knows your capacity, so no one can target your weaknesses. You become a ghost in the system, building a life of substance rather than a life of appearance. This requires a complete shift in your identity. You are no longer looking for validation, you are looking for sustainability. Stay focused on your long-term plan, Keep your financial goals locked away and never, under any circumstances, let anyone distract you with miracle paths that only lead to the destruction of what you have worked so hard to save. You have spent immense energy to reach this level of safety. Do not gamble it away for the sake of an ego boost or a false dream. The true power of having $10,000 in your account is not the ability to spend it. It is the freedom to know you are protected. Guard that freedom with silence, guard it with logic, and guard it by refusing to participate in the noise of those who try to sell you a shortcut to a destination that you can only reach by walking. Your path is your own, and it is far too valuable to be sabotaged by the influence of others. Now that you have navigated the initial traps and shielded yourself from the most common mistakes, you reach the most dangerous threshold of all, the growth to static threshold. This is the exact moment where your $10,000 stops being a triumphant achievement and begins, subtly and dangerously, to become an anchor. In behavioral psychology, we consistently observe a fascinating yet destructive pattern. Once the human brain hits a target that it perceives as safe, it naturally seeks comfort and attempts to enter a state of permanent rest. This is the precise reason why so many people, perhaps even those you admire, become psychologically paralyzed. They spend years merely counting what they have accumulated, living in a constant state of fear while their true capacity to live, innovate, and evolve remains frozen in time. To avoid falling into this trap, you must fundamentally shift your perspective. You must realize that these $10,000 are not a reserve for you to hide behind. They are the catalyst for your next level of professional and personal leverage. If you allow this money to sit idle, convinced that you are being prudent, you are actually paying what I call the cost of inaction. This is a silent, invisible fee that you pay every single day. It is a cost where you lose far more than just potential interest. You are losing the growth of your own skill set, the expansion of your professional network, and your ability to adapt to a world that is moving faster than ever. When money sits idle, it is decaying in value, but when you sit idle, you are decaying in potential. The extraordinary approach is to break this cycle by treating a deliberate portion of this milestone as a venture capital fund for your own life. You are, without any doubt, the most important asset in your portfolio. If you don't invest in yourself, who will? Therefore, the moment you hit $10,000, you must identify one critical area, a high-level certification, a specialized professional tool, or a strategic skill, where an investment of this capital will yield a significantly higher return in your career and quality of life than it ever could sitting in a traditional savings account. By taking this step, you stop saving just to avoid the fear of poverty, and you start investing to ensure that your future version has a higher market value and a broader range of options than the version of you that exists today. This is how you transform accumulated wealth into a mechanism for continuous evolution. However, I know that when it comes time to put this level of discipline into practice, legitimate doubts begin to surface. You might be thinking, how much exactly should I set aside for emergencies versus growth? What criteria actually define a true emergency versus a spending impulse? How do I spot the false promises of quick profit that are trying to lure me in? These are not just technical questions. They are the questions that keep you awake at night when you finally hold capital in your hands. I didn't want to leave you without a clear, actionable answer. I have spent months distilling the exact step-by-step process I use myself into a comprehensive pocket manual. It is a direct, no-nonsense guide that provides the calculations, the checklists, and most importantly, the mental filters I apply daily to protect my assets and ensure that every cent is serving a clear strategic purpose in my life. The link to access this guide is in the description below, offered for a symbolic price. I chose this price point intentionally, not to generate profit, but to ensure that those who download it are truly committed, serious, and ready to take responsibility for their own financial security. It is my gift to you, a bridge between the confusion of how to start and the clarity of having a proven plan. You don't have to learn these lessons the hard way through loss and regret. Instead, you can move forward with a structured, battle-tested plan, ensuring your bank account remains a mirror of your progress rather than a silent monument to your past.